All right, hello everybody. So welcome to another Smithfield Citizens Town Meeting. So today we are discussing the Second Amendment stuff going on. So the state is trying to pass a assault weapon ban, as you guys may have heard in the news. So here we have a few people that are affiliated with Second Amendment rights and things like that in the cabin. So we're going to start off to my left here. Mike, can you tell us who you are and how you're affiliated with firearms?
Yes, I'm from Smithfield, born and raised. And I am a member at Smithfield Sportsman's Club in town, and I'm also an NRA and a USCCA instructor, as well as one of the founding directors of Bellum Provisions, which is a nonprofit that helps in the education and training in firearm safety.
Yeah, very nice. All right. Hello, Dan. Can you please tell us who you are?
Certainly, Dan Kiesler. I am also a Smithfield resident, 15 years, USCCA and NRA instructor. I work with Bellum Provisions. I'm on the board of Bellum Provisions as well. Mike and I work together in a group called the Community Instructors of Rhode Island, where we do free firearms classes as a community service every month for folks that are interested in becoming firearm owners or learning more about shooting sports and hunting, and basically write articles and participate in the activities for supporting the Second Amendment.
All right, very nice. How about you, Marcus? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Marcus. I've lived in Smithfield for 27 years now. I've done firearms instruction, and I'm pursuing 3 bachelor's degrees in political science, public administration, and policy formation at Rhode Island College.
All right. B-Dog, what do you do, hiking or something? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm Brent Dell, B-Dog. Nick's partner in crime here on the podcast, and I specialize in outdoor video production and hiking for B-Dog Digital or Brent Dell YouTube channel.
All right, very nice. So, the hot subject in town, if you look last month, we had a bunch of people. So, for people that do not know, right? So, we're starting this on the base level, okay? So, if I'm just some new dude in town, what happened last month? There might have been a month and a half ago. A bunch of people in yellow shirts went to the town hall. What were they trying to get through? Does a yellow shirt mean that you're pro Second Amendment, which Second Amendment means your right to bear arms, right? So let's actually start with that, okay? So this is good. We're going to start like prehistoric levels. An amendment, what does this mean? So everybody talks about freedom of speech, right? So that's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. What does an amendment mean? That the laws have to be based around that laws cannot infringe amendments? Can somebody explain that? Because we're all talking about we're pro Second Amendment, whatever that means. What's the actual amendment?
Amendments are constitutional provisions that provide protections from laws being made about certain topics. So the First Amendment, for example, is your right to free speech. It forbids the government from interfering with speech in most cases. The Supreme Court's carved out a few exceptions if you're causing imminent danger or imminent harm, like yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, if there isn't a fire. But for the most part, it forbids the government from infringing on your ability to share your opinion or talk about topics, even if they disturb people.
Very well said. So laws have to, this is a base for the laws that they have to build upon the amendments, right?
It literally forbids the government from doing certain actions.
Okay, that makes sense. So then we have this big gray area that the state is dealing with right now. So the next part of it is, can somebody explain what the state is trying to pass and where we are in this, okay? So we have something called they labeled it an assault weapon ban. Can somebody calmly explain what that is and how it affects an everyday firearm owner?
Sure. Well, first, it's already passed. It passed the House and the Senate, and the governor has now signed it into law.
Okay, so I actually was trying to keep up on it. That is kind of newer news. I remember sorry that I interrupted you. I told you you're going to have to use the button to stop me, but what we've been seeing in the news is, the clickbait of this passed, but it passes like 3 different things. So now You're saying officially Dan McKee signed it, which is our governor in Rhode Island, that they are going to and explain when and what they banned. Explain your thing. So go ahead. Sure. Sorry, Dan.
That's okay. So it went through several iterations in the House and the Senate and got changed in its form. It initially started out as an outright ban on what they define as an assault weapon, which is another discussion in whole. It ended up being, rather than a ban of possession, it was what was passed was actually just a ban on the sale and manufacture of assault weapons in Rhode Island. So possession is not outlawed at all. So we can still possess them and have them and use them in a lawful manner.
Very nice. Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. Now we're up to date. Everybody was just talking. What's up, B-Dog?
So basically what you're saying is they put a ban on any future sales of what they consider assault weapons in Rhode Island, but if you already own one, they're not going to take it from you. Is that right?
For now, on July the 4th, as we were celebrating the Independence Day, the holiday brought to us by civilians armed with assault weapons, Every Town for Gun Safety was putting out advertisements in Rhode Island stating that this ban does not go far enough and we have to come back and ask for a complete ban on possession. So the folks that are opposed to this have doubled down and are still carrying on.
Okay, we're going to speak about the ideology behind these both sides in a little bit. Can we explain, what did Smithfield do recently at the town hall? They voted for something they called a Second Amendment resolution. So what does that mean for an everyday citizen that does own a firearm here? What was that supposed to protect?
So yes, what they voted on was a resolution. Is basically just a non-binding statement that says that the town of Smithfield, the residents of the town of Smithfield, do not agree with the state passing the assault weapons ban. We were I believe the 14th town in Rhode Island to pass such a resolution. Some of them went further than others. Smithfield's was pretty watered down by the end. Some of them were 4 or 5 pages long. But ours was down to, I think, 1.5 pages in the end. It was much shorter. So it basically just said that the town doesn't agree with the state passing this bill because it's unconstitutional.
So I feel like this is new water. We don't even know exactly physically what that means. So that means, say Dan McKee puts out an army to revoke firearms from people. Does that mean Smithfield police go, no, and get in the way and they stop the stateies from coming in to take the weapons? Or does it mean the town just on paper disapproves it and they watch the firearms get revoked and they just shrug like this? I don't know, and I'm not sure if we all know, because this is new water for all of us, okay? We do have a comment that came in. Are you able to see it? Yeah, is it Mr. Sousa?
Well, there's an earlier comment from...
All right, yeah, read this stuff from the beginning. Go ahead, B-Dog.
You want to pull up the...
oh, sorry about that,
yeah, you can just see it right away.
All right, hello. Well, I guess they can see your name anyway, so Karen. Assault weapons are exceptionally dangerous firearms, commonplace in mass fatality shootings. They are generally capable of firing far more bullets, far faster than manual action hunting rifles. Prohibiting assault weapons can prevent mass shooting injuries and deaths. They should be reserved for what they were originally made for, service. Stricter gun control laws are often associated with lower rates of gun violence, including homicides, suicides, and accidental shootings. All right, and scroll down here. We have a rebuttal here. So you believe that taking semi-automatic assault weapons away from law-abiding citizens will prevent crimes. People who want to commit a crime will get a weapon of choice regardless of any gun laws. There are millions of these firearms in circulation. To ban these weapons, it's too late. The horse is already out of the barn on that. And any law-abiding citizens will not turn anything in or registering anything is unconstitutional. So these will make us hard-working Americans into criminals in the eyes of the law. Here is an idea. Make a law banning drugs and see if that works first. LOL. Oh wait, we did that. Hee hee ha ha. And then we could go on forever, but exactly anyway. And then, hey, scroll down. There are a bunch of comments. Wow, you guys are really showing up. Thanks, guys. Oh, I want to read. Kevin's a good friend of the podcast. Nick, I'm not able to get the microphone.
All right, these are not.
So I'd like to address the first response from the young lady from just a statistical standpoint.
Sure.
So, assault weapons are used in less than 1% of all firearms crimes. They account for less than 1% of the fatalities from all firearm crimes. Yes, when they happen, they take a lot of lives at one time. But when you statistically look at the number of firearm crimes and deaths caused by firearms, it is overwhelmingly caused by handguns, which this legislation doesn't touch at all.
Well, I just wanted... this is how we would define assault weapons, and we would think of them as, like, semi-automatic carbines that are capable of accepting, like, a detachable magazine. That's probably what we all have in our mind, but this bill and other bills across the country will define a lot of weapons as assault weapons. They'll include things like handguns and other weapons that would be protected in other states. So assault weapon is such a nebulous definition. I'm like almost uncomfortable even using it. But what she's talking about in theory would be she mentions in her comment that it's different from like would you say a bolt action hunting rifle or
this is the original comment right here.
People the manual action hunting rifle, which that I guess she's talking about bolt actions, lever guns, right? So she's defining it in a way that most people wouldn't even think to define an assault weapon. And her comment there about how, you know, they weren't intended originally for civilian use. There's a lot of things wrong in her comment. First of all, the first semi-automatic firearm would be like a Boychard pistol, roughly 1890s. It would have came out. I think
Puckle gun, 1780.
Puckle gun, yup. Yeah, so there were guns in the past that held more than one round and stuff. The Boychard's probably the first one that's got a detachable magazine and follows a sort of modern design.
This is the earliest you can consider assault weapon?
Yeah, it's more of
let's be careful with the term assault weapon.
Mm-hmm.
This is a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Assault is an action that a human being carries out.
Right, yeah.
Okay, you're right.
That's what I was kind of trying to get at before. Yeah. And well, when we talk about like modern style firearms that would accept magazines, it's a very old technology. We're going back to at least 1893, maybe even a little earlier. And none of them were designed for service use. In fact, it took the U.S. government, another 25 years or so to adopt the 1911, which would have been their first semi-automatic firearm that they adopted, which was designed in 1901. So they were intended for civilian use from the beginning.
Correct.
And then armies adapted to them. And also, when we talk about the Second Amendment in general, yeah, it allowed muskets and stuff, but that was the most sophisticated stuff they had at the time. The intention was to let civilians have things that were in parity to what soldiers might use against them.
So let's not water it down. Let's call it what it is. Let's go back to the founders' intent of the Second Amendment. You have to remember that we had just taken men and women that were sharecroppers and farmers and defeated what at the time was the largest standing army on the planet. Guys and gals and husbands and sons took their arms that they had in their homes, and our founding fathers debated the Second Amendment for a long time. You can read the Federalist, I believe it's 49 and 26 Federalist papers to discuss what they were thinking and what their thoughts were. The Second Amendment protects the rights to own all bearable arms, and we're not just talking about firearms. We're talking about bearable arms the military or the police can carry. The intent was that the people be sufficiently armed that we were able to repel a foreign invader or government, or our own, because it specifically says we protect against tyranny, foreign or domestic. So if we're going to be purist in the sense of the Second Amendment, we should be allowed to have full machine guns that are bearable. And that was the intent. And for people that would come back with the comment, well, you can't fight tanks and jets with rifles, go tell that to the Viet Cong. Because they held off the tanks and rifles for years and years and years, and it's why Hirohito never attacked the mainland of the U.S.
Gives you a chance.
Yeah, he said that there is a rifle behind every bit. It's meant to be a deterrent. No one wants to promote violence or even a rebellion unless it's necessary. But the whole intent of an armed populace is, if we work the way our founders intended, the militia is made up of all men 18 to 58 years old. If there came a need for it, the government would call up the men and women and the farmers and the sharecroppers and those of us that live in our house and say, hey, we need your help. Bring your weapons and help us. And the state police would be working with groups of citizens on training so that they had like first responder groups so that they were available.
I also think it's important to note that in the Second Amendment it says arms. It's not just giving you a right to weapons. It's training, it's other things that you would, like supplies, preparedness. This was the expectation of the people of the time, that we could all contribute as responsible citizens to emergencies, or just to fight crime in our own neighborhoods. Not saying that anyone should go out and like play vigilante, because we have police now that they wouldn't have had back then, but
personal protection, at least at home.
Exactly.
Someone breaking into your house, being able to protect yourself or your family from someone
Right,
invading or attacking you at home.
When seconds count, the police are 15, 20 minutes away, just by the nature of people don't commit crimes in front of the police unless they're very, very stupid.
No, question though, because you talked about, so whatever the government owns, the civilians should also own. Now, not saying that I believe this, and I still am pretty sure that you will get arrested if you do this, but if you knew how to build your own nuclear weapon, would that be legal? Because the government owns that.
Bearable.
Okay.
Bearable.
All right.
That you can carry.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, bear arms. Okay, so they have no idea when those guys in 1770, I forget the exact date, wrote that down. They have no idea. 100 years, 200 years, we'll be arguing about this forever. They should have, like, next time you make a country write a law, you need to put exactly what every single exact thing means. So let me summarize.
Well, I mean, even if they did that, Nick, they would have written it in 1700s language that would be tough for you to go, well, what did they mean by that
and
now?
the goal wasn't to write out very specifically exact items either.
It was
designed to be able to grow over time, and they built the Constitution and the amendments to grow over hundreds of years. That's why they wrote it the way they did, is so that it wasn't something specific to their day. You can own a musket, you can own a Kentucky long rifle a couple decades later, right? It was more about growing with technology. They knew things were going to change over time. They planned for that by the way they wrote that.
It's
So
like
a quick example on the rights and how they evolved and what our founding fathers said and where we are today. We have the right. Our Constitution Bill of Rights gives us the right to move about freely. They knew nothing about the fact that we would have airplanes today. The First Amendment protects our right to speech. They didn't know we would sit here broadcasting via the internet and airwaves the way we speak. They put the philosophies and the ideas in place that we built upon them and kept the principles.
Okay, so that makes you're saying they purposely left it vague. So you guys made a point. I just wanted to summarize it because for people that are new to the topic, like I was new a little while ago, it's very tough to understand what you guys meant. So, what one of the points was made was the point of owning a firearm to some people is that the government cannot enforce some insane violent law against you. Like, if in 1939, if all the Jewish people of Germany had firearms, the government would not have been able to force them into a ghetto and in a concentration camp, right? So that's what you're saying. Or if in Smithfield they enforce a goatee law, they say everybody has to have a goatee like Dan Kelser because it looks so well. And it's actually
Kiesler.
It's Kiesler. Sorry.
All right.
It's okay.
They have to enforce that.
It does look nice. We all have a little bit of a beard going on in this room right now.
Well, guys, we're talking about life and death stuff here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep it serious. So if they're going to enforce this goatee thing that I think they might, in the town hall, I think they are trying to pass, the Dan Kiesler goatee law, if every Smithfield citizen is armed, the police and state police and Gestapos cannot go and enforce that, right? They're going to deny doing that. Everybody's armed, right? So if they're unarmed and all you have is a kitchen butter knife, but they have firearms, you're saying that that's why the country's supposed to be run by the people? If the people are armed, then the people run the country, right?
The people reserve some power to themselves in order to resist a tyrannical government. And I want to be clear that, like, the idea of a tyrannical government would be one that's well outside the bounds of what's going on today. But you made a good point with the Nazi Germany and the Wehrmacht Republic and how it was overturned by the Nazis, and they were able to go out and, like, police the streets with violence and influence elections and put Hitler in charge, and then all their rights and everything disappeared. But it's actually the government before them that was a well-intentioned liberal government that had taken away Germans' rights to bear arms. Prior to that, actually, I have a chart in paper over there. We could bring it up. Yeah,
It's on this page.
yeah. If we scroll down here, we have a list of stuff right here. So these are all regulations that were put in place by the Wehrmacht government, which is the one that preceded the Nazi government. They enacted all of these changes, and these are some of the things that get proposed in the U.S. today. And we're, like, headed down the same path that sets you up for somebody to come in after and act like a fascist.
Yeah. So to make it relevant, we would change Nazi Germany, we would change that to the word Smithfield. So Smithfield, after uprising, You know what I mean? Because it's a Smithfield meeting here, so Smithfield.
Well, the
requires all
modern
citizens-
U.S. proposals are the kind of thing Smithfield
Or
and the
Rhode
Rhode
Island.
Island state government have been.
Yeah, so look, it says, so the second one, mandatory surrender of firearms. So Rhode Island requires all citizens to surrender firearms. So that's what people are afraid of here. I'm neutral on the topic, but here, so as you guys look at the chart, imagine if it says Smithfield required all citizens to surrender firearms and ammo. Then Smithfield enforces up to 5 years in prison. Smithfield require all this stuff. And what's at the bottom? It say something about concentration camp or something? Or
that's it.
help consolidate Smithfield Nazi power. Okay, cool.
I
Interesting.
use ChatGPT as a reference for the paper.
Cool, very
But
interesting.
but the I use ChatGPT to help compile the two comparisons of laws and make the chart for me.
Mhm.
There are interesting comparisons in there where, like, so we have like up to 5 years in prison and large fines for illegal possession, right? That was under the Weimar Republic. We're well beyond that. We'll put people in jail for way more than 5 years for possessing magazines,
Or bill is 10 years.
right? Or having a gun that you didn't buy in an appropriate way, or you bought privately, or you have an NFA firearm and you don't have the tax stamp for it. We'll put people in jail for 20 years.
That's
Like,
crazy.
And I just read an article yesterday where a fellow here in the U.S., I can't remember the state, was sentenced to 6 years for sexually assaulting a 9-year-old. And we get 10 years if we have a magazine that holds one bullet over 10.
Okay, so you're saying like the comparisons there are not lining up. So what Dan Kiesler is saying is that you can find examples of an extremely heinous crime that will carry less of a punishment than for some non-violent ownership of some weapon that or a firearm they're gonna consider to be illegal. Okay, go to the comments to see if we got any new
We
stuff.
have some
'cause it
new
looks
stuff.
like-
Yes, we do. If you want to switch
Oh,
it to the screen.
Yes. Okay, cool. So we got, what is that? The Swedish chef. That's his profile picture there. I support the assault weapons ban. No one needs an AR-15 or an Uzi. Okay, we're gonna. Everybody's fidgeting. If you guys can't see, everybody's fidgeting in their seats right now. They're going. All right. All right. So they don't. They didn't. I don't know what
And
you're
you
referring
start
to.
right here.
Yeah. Hey. So hey, is this the newest comment though? Scroll
The
up. make sure
newest
you all
is
of
in
them.
the top.
All right.
Most
Even
of
though I
them.
can see your scroll bar goes up more, I think you're trying to censor people there, buddy.
Nope, that's it.
There we are. Sorry, buddy. All right. They didn't, but they had the latest, best firearm that was carried at the time, like AR, today's.
I
most
think
of
that's
firearm.
probably a reference to us talking about the intention of the
Yeah.
founders and the
Going back to
colonial
the
weapons.
muskets and the
Right,
discussion,
yeah.
Also, this notion that civilians have weapons of war is ridiculous and only highlights the fact that they have no clue and speak on things they don't know about. Firearms, military-type weapons should be what they consider weapons of war or assault weapon, consistent of a weapon that is full auto, not semi-auto. Full auto allows weapons. So he's agreeing with what everybody's saying here, right? Okay, cool.
Not really. So, like, I
Can
wouldn't.
somebody summarize this? I'm not sure what he meant.
So when he talks about a weapon of war, what's a weapon of war? I mean, a bow and arrow is a weapon of war.
If I
A
use
machete's a weapon of war. Sword, yeah. A knife, anything could be a weapon of war. And when we talk about fully automatic or semi-automatic guns, and we start to make these distinctions, I mean, so he's trying to clarify for, I think, other people that may have left comments, whether what's a semi-auto means it's not fully automatic. You have to pull the trigger every time, once per round. I don't know if I would advocate that, like, we shouldn't be allowed to own automatic guns.
In Rhode Island, while we're not allowed to own them, you are in other states. Massachusetts, with the proper permits and licensing and tax stamp, you can own a full
Yeah,
auto.
because we have a ban on NFA
have a ban
items,
on
which
NFA
is
items.
which is another thing we could talk about. What the National Firearms Act is. It went in place in 1936, and it's a series of laws that prevent you from owning certain guns, like rifles that have a barrel shorter than 16 inches, shotguns that have a barrel shorter than 18 inches, if they retain a stock and they're not registered as a pistol. Certain other guns that would have other features if they're under 27 inches long, and then also suppressors and fully automatic guns. And it was put in place not to make them illegal. They're not illegal. That would be illegal for the government to do under the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court has gone over this many times. What it did instead was put a preventative tax in place on allowing people to purchase them.
So if I can reel this back in for a second, let's reel this back into what the folks that are in support of this ban, what their talking points are. Not, and I don't mean to say talking points to belittle them, but let's stick to why they would want this to be in place. And the arguments that we often hear are because nobody needs an assault weapon, but nobody knows what an assault weapon is. I mean, period. But they say it's about safety, or it's about the death of children, or the other. You guys that are online that are watching that are in support of this bill, what are the reasons that you say that you accept this? Because an AR-15 is less dangerous than a 30-30 hunting rifle, or a 6.5 Creedmoor deer rifle, or a 450 Bushmaster for shooting wild boars with, and it's just a semi-automatic rifle. So, is it about safety? And if so, how does banning assault rifles accomplish that? And statistically, based on the crime statistics, which we can have, we can pull that up too. They just don't use them in crimes, except the mass shootings that have occurred, which account for less than 1% of gun crimes. So,
you know what? There's a couple.
Even then, most mass shootings are done with pistols.
We do have a couple more
exactly.
comments too that came up as well.
All right, read the comments, then give me the stage for a little bit, because I wanted to organize a little bit of what we said.
This is the latest what we have right here.
So yeah, I'll read out loud.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
okay.
Oh, there's a few of them that just came up right now. Okay, so let's start with the.
Yeah, how do we get all of them?
Firearms violence is prevented.
Is it deleting them as we go on?
I think that some of them are actually just deleted. Hang on.
Yeah, hold on. Well, let me just get these while they're here, just because we get
Okay.
them.
Here we
So
go.
I'm 100% in opposition of the assault weapon bans bill. That means weapons of war or assault weapon to people who support. Okay, cool. Yeah. So here we go. Firearm violence is preventable public health tragedy affecting communities across the United States. In 2023, 46,000. What number is that? 46,700.
That's
There's an extra digit in there.
yeah,
but,
okay.
Around 17,900. Oh, I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it.
It's right here. This is it.
Oh shit! I thought it was. What was that one up there? Never
People
mind.
keep commenting.
Sorry. Sorry. Firearm violence is a preventable. Firearm violence is a preventable public health tragedy affecting communities across the United States. In 2023, 46,728 people died by firearms in the United States, an average of one death every 11 minutes. An assault weapon...
sorry, the comments, that one was just deleted. So.
I bet you I can find it.
Okay.
An assault weapon...
Up is the newest one. Down is the oldest one.
Yeah.
Well, I can talk quickly.
Well, I found it. Let me just... Oh, it's a paragraph. Let's get it before it goes away. An assault weapon as commonly used in legal and political context typically refers to a semi-automatic firearm with certain military-style features. These features often include a detachable magazine, a pistol grip, a folding or telescoping stock, a flash suppressor, or a grenade launcher. However, the specific definition of assault weapon varies significantly by the jurisdiction, with different states and even different laws within a state using their own criteria. Okay. Gun death rates vary widely across the United States due to difference in socioeconomic factors, demographics, and importantly, gun policies in general. The states with the highest gun death rates tend to be states in the South or Mountain West, with weaker gun laws and higher levels of gun ownership, while gun death rates are lower in the Northeast, where gun violence prevention laws are stronger. So, very, very interesting. So, honestly, thank God we have. So I was afraid of this whole thing was going to be a fest of Second Amendment supporters. Which, so the whole point of the podcast is to discuss it. So we have some opposition. Give me the mic. So everybody think about what you wanted to say to that. But give me the mic for a second. I always want to summarize what we're talking about. So this is so we have that argument against it. So let me talk about an argument against it that I feel. So everybody here, let me how to describe this. Hold on.
Well, can I just say, without any statistics even, can I just say that I feel that I just thought that there was more gun deaths in the large cities like Chicago or New York due to gang violence than there are out, west in Colorado where there's much more open space and less people. That's just what I thought.
Can we get one of you three guys? Can you guys give me the argument about once you ban a weapon or ban firearm ownership, that criminals do not have to abide by that. So that means that you are taking firearms from a law-abiding person and empowering a criminal. So somebody think of that and get a little summary. We'll do that in a few minutes, okay? Whoever wants to do that, who agrees to do it so the other person knows. Who?
Everybody probably.
We could all do it.
All right, anyway. Okay, so I know everybody wants to talk, but give me a second. B-Dog, a cool thing to pull up is, because we all argue, it's a lot of deaths. It's not a lot of deaths. We're talking about Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
How many deaths, just in general, drownings, everything in the state, and then how many of them are from firearms, and if we're lucky, how many are legally owned versus illegally owned firearms. So try to get that. You can have your homework for the next 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck. You understand what I meant? Okay, cool. So that way we can even get a scope of, are we looking at 0.1% of people are getting killed by firearms? Or are we talking about half the state are getting killed by firearms? You know what I mean? We just don't know. How many deaths? Keep the mic on me, guys, on. Criminals not to force. Okay, this is my argument. If I were to say, this is how I understand someone who wants to support an assault weapon ban, right? Hey, how come everybody's looking down? You guys need a break or something? What's going on?
Reading.
I'm trying to make sure I keep track of all the questions that we're asking so that we can answer them.
Thank you. Hey, that AC's blowing cold air, right? Is it?
It is.
Is it? You check it right now.
It's blowing coolish air.
Is it? Check to make sure it's on cool. It's not on like dry or something.
Okay.
And turn the temperature down so that way. Temps down?
It's on cool. I put it on 65.
Cool, alright. Yeah, so it was kind of blowing lukewarm air, right? Now it'll kick on in a second.
It's getting colder now.
Alright,
So
I don't know
we're
what the
good.
hell was up with that. Alright, anyway. This is my argument for it. So, everybody listen carefully because I thought about this for a couple days. If I am a single mother that lives, what's some condos in Smithfield? Say, what's the condos called next to on Pleasant View Ave, across from the restaurant there. You know the restaurant on Pleasant View Ave? I forget what it's called. Apple Orchard?
Orchard Grill.
Say it again?
Orchard Grill.
So I live across from Orchard Grill at those condos there. I am a single mother that moved to the state, and I live with my daughter. She's 5 years old. My next door neighbor wears a Trump hat, and he's very angry, and sometimes he hits his wife. He owns, like he's legally allowed to, in his condo, which we share a wall with, he owns a bunch of semi-automatic carbines and handguns and stuff, okay? I have no interest in owning a firearm. I do not want a firearm in the house with my daughter. I don't have space to even put a safe to lock it up. My reality is I don't want that man next to me that doesn't like me because he saw my Bernie sticker and then my Harris sticker or whatever on the back of my car. He already doesn't like me, and he has such a power threshold over me. Yes, I am choosing not to own a firearm because I'm just not, physically I'm just a 100-pound female. I'm just not interested in this. So for that woman's reality, it would work in favor for her, for nobody to own a firearm besides the police. When she has an issue, she's going to call the police. She is not going to go defend herself.
Would it?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I'm not done. But if I live on Man School Road and there's a bus stop next to me in a very bad neighborhood they built off Man School Road, and I have cattle and I have a little farm, and I have no firearm, it's an extreme disservice. I cannot defend my farm. They already broke into the house and they already shot it up just for fun because they don't like my political views. And they used illegal firearms, right? So they just had an Uzi. They went to my house just for the hell of it. And I'm not allowed to own a firearm. So we have the same town, a woman living 2 miles away. Her reality is this: nobody in the state should have a firearm. It favors her. But 2 miles away, this guy on Man School Road, it's an extreme disservice to him, and it puts his whole family at risk. So we have such different lifestyles within a 2-mile radius. So no one's going to be right if to ban them all. It's not going to be correct because people are going to get killed. And banning them, or whatever the opposite was, if you know what I was talking about, both sides are going to involve people will die because of this. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, but that's the reality, right? So that's how I feel. I feel like it was a pretty good argument, right? Because we weren't able. I reached out to people on the Smithfield pages trying to get somebody here, and I reached out on the Smithfield Anti-Hate Coalition trying to get people here. And nobody wanted to show up, so I'm trying to argue for that point. Okay. Also, guys, flood the comments if you feel like you need to. So now, You wrote down the things. Does anybody have anything to say? I think.
Sure.
Anybody, yeah.
I'd like to take this. So the young lady in the apartment with the 5-year-old that doesn't want to own a firearm, that's her choice, and I respect that choice, and I think every lawful firearm owner in the state would respect that choice. But her desire for the guy next to her not to have one is a feeling, and our rights aren't based on feelings. My rights don't stop where their feelings begin. So that's the first thing in her case. And our laws have to be, well, first off, it's not a law, it's a right. And the Second Amendment didn't grant the right to have arms. The Second Amendment, as he pointed out earlier, prevents our government from infringing on that right. It's a natural right. So if the law, there's a couple of points I want to make here. If the police and our courts prosecuted the criminals and passed legislation that did that to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, every firearm owner in this state, and I believe any state, would sit down at the table with them and say, let's figure out how to pass a law to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. We all want that. Everybody wants that. But you don't have to do that for people that are lawful citizens and the guy that has 5 in his closet. And if the guy's violent with his wife, put him in jail for being violent with his wife. That's a felony if you own a firearm and you have a firearm. So, take care of that, prosecute the crime. But you can't feel like people shouldn't have a firearm just because you don't want one. I want you to have the right not to have one and leave my right to have one alone.
In one quick sense, to help you, I just realized that woman, if that woman wants to ban them now for her personal safety now, in 10 years, she might be starved out from some insane government law that they passed that the people around her weren't able to defend themselves from, right? Now, that's obviously a long shot. Did I explain that correctly? Did you understand what I mean? Or am I saying that incorrectly?
I think her problems could be so much more immediate than that. There's a lot of studies that talk about how if women get attacked violently, the risk of death, injury, or sexual assault goes up drastically if they don't have a firearm. Like, in a world without guns, where guns don't exist, the people who don't need them are strong, fit, young to middle-aged men. Everyone else is at the rule of right, like might makes right. That's a world we used to live in, and I don't think people were safer. Like, if we go back to like Roman times, your average person was not safer than they are today. Your average person was not safer than they were at the turn of the century or in the 1900s. We like to view like mass shootings and like these attacks as a modern problem. They're really not. It's a thing that's been happening throughout history. There's a case from 1937 about a guy who worked for a school department and blew up a school. He killed like 37 people with a bomb. He made it home. I mean, like, nothing is going to prevent sick people from doing sick things, right? Like, we don't have a way to predict. Maybe AI or something will come out where we can predict if people are going to go crazy in advance. But as it stands right now, we don't have a good way of figuring that out. And we just got to take the good with the bad. And that woman, if she feels uncomfortable living next to that guy, that's her problem. I mean, I feel uncomfortable living next to somebody that's that anti-gun and that distrusting of their neighbors. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to go watch some TV and live my life.
So let me add a point here about the people that choose not to have firearms and would like for the police to be their resource. So the Supreme Court has 3 times ruled, and I can't name the cases without looking them up, Castle Rock v. Gonzalez, Warren.
What's the one with New York with the subway, where the guy stabbed the guy on the subway?
Yeah, so they ruled the Supreme Court has stated 3 times in our recent history, that the police do not have a lawful duty to protect citizens of the United States. One of the cases that was involved with a family, a guy's living in his apartment, and a strange husband comes in, and the boyfriend's there, and he rapes the wife and the mother in front of them. They take the court and say, where were the police? Why didn't they protect us? And the Supreme Court rightly ruled The police don't have the duty to protect you because we have the right to protect ourselves. The Second Amendment prohibits the government from taking that right from us. Therefore, it can't be the police's job. And the next point I want to make on that is response times for police. Right here in Smithfield, 9 to 12 minutes. Now, depending on where you are, we're very close to the police station here, but Smithfield's pretty big. Nationally, it's 10 to 14 minutes. In some of the cities, it's up to 30 minutes for a 911 call. According to FBI statistics, a violent encounter with a firearm lasts 3 to 5 seconds, or 3 to 5 minutes rather, 3 to 5 minutes, and it's over. The police aren't even there until it's finished. And with that piece on the table, consider this: everybody in their home. Everybody in this country, you guys have smoke detectors in your house?
Yeah.
You guys
Yes.
have fire extinguishers in your house?
Yes.
Why don't we do that?
Because the fire department can't get there in time. While I see the fire, I can put it out and I can save the house, right?
So this is a very easy statistic for everybody to look up. Go look at the number of firearm deaths versus the population and density of any state, in this country. Everybody just agreed we all have smoke detectors and fire extinguishers to protect ourselves, right? In case there's a fire. Statistically, you are 3 times more likely to face a violent encounter with a firearm than you are to be burned in a home fire. But yet everybody in the country protects themselves against something that's a lot less likely than being armed.
Well, part of that is because preventative measures like smoke detectors and fire extinguishers work. Fire used to be a big problem in this country, but then we put a lot of effort into making sure that, schools and public buildings have automatic fire suppression. We put resources and structure into fixing it.
And that's what we should, and that's exactly what carrying a firearm in my pocket does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Should that incident
Instead,
arise,
we do the
I'm
opposite
protected.
with the criminal problem. We say shootings are a problem. Let's make sure nobody has a gun, so that way when somebody does, they can kill as many people as possible without being stopped.
Or they can call the
Like, it
police, who
doesn't-
will show up 14 minutes
So,
later.
Getting back to that point with the police, just to make it clear, we don't want to sound like we're bashing the police.
That's correct.
No.
And when the Supreme Court's made those rulings that they're not there to protect you, they're there to protect the community as a whole.
Correct.
Right. So that means after the crime's been committed, they find the person who committed the crime, find them, charge them, arrest them, and make that happen afterwards. They're not. They can't be everywhere all at once to stop every
Correct.
individual crime from
There
happening.
are
They make
circumstances.
sure they're not repeated.
There
Valid
are
point.
circumstances where the police didn't help people.
Vivaldi.
The case I just looked up is really even worse. It's called Lozito versus the City of New York. And what happened in that case was there was a stabber on the New York subways who's going around stabbing people. And this guy was on a train where the police had been put on the train to catch the stabber. The person going around stabbing people, got up and tried to stab somebody while he was in that car with them. He wrestles with the guy and gets stabbed several times in the process. Meanwhile, the police were moving their way down the train cars. They saw him confronting the guy they were looking for who was stabbing people. They saw him stabbing him. They did not go through the door and walk into that train car and help him until he had restrained the attacker, and he was injured badly in the process. And later he sued the U.S. government. He sued the city of New York, saying like, "Hey, didn't they have a duty to help me?" And the Supreme Court says no, they don't.
That's
so
correct.
if you're completely dependent on them to help you in the moment, they could have the same reaction any human could have. They could freeze up, they could panic, they could run away, and they're not going to be held responsible for that. At the end of the day, it's up to you to protect yourself.
Yes.
And for some of us, that's easier than it is for others, but a gun is a great equalizer. Right? I don't think I could beat up Arnold Schwarzenegger in a dark alley, but I could probably get in a gunfight and make it 50-50 at worst, right?
Correct. And for a 68-year-old woman, there's a disparity of force. That's what you're talking about.
Right.
Me, I need 2 total knee replacements. I can't run from anybody.
Right, yeah. Yeah, a 65-year-old woman who knows how to shoot would be a problem for me in
Correct.
a dark alley, right? Even if I have a gun. So
Can somebody in one? It's going to be tough. Can somebody in one sentence summarize that? Because it's sometimes tough to follow with the names and the case and everything. Can somebody summarize that Lozito, whatever thing that was, it was tough to follow. So give me a one-sentence thing, and then so after you say that, new comments came in. While he speaks, can somebody near the air conditioner confirm with a thumbs up that it's blowing cold? Right, actually, do it right now.
Do we make you
It
hot?
No. So I don't drink coffee. I had a Red Bull.
Ah.
I'm starting to hallucinate. I could feel the ceiling dripping condensation on me. Yeah, I don't drink caffeine, so that's why I'm freaking out, right?
Don't say hallucinate on air.
Anyway, hello, Mike. Could you please summarize that real quick, and then B-Dog get the comments ready?
Yeah, so quickly with the Lozito case, the quick of it was there were police present that, for one reason or another, did not feel that they were equipped and handled and ready to stop a crime that was actively in progress, and they held off until after the threat was neutralized before they went in and cleaned up and arrested the perpetrator. And they were ruled that they were in the right to do so.
And how does it relate to the argument of pro-Second Amendment?
So what that means basically is even if you're standing right next to a cop, if you're getting attacked, they're not required to stop the attack on you. You're still your own protector. That's the biggest thing that we teach in most of our classes.
Mm-hmm.
You are your own protector. You have to be able to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones, because a police officer is not required to do so and may not decide to do so.
There's going to be no consequence for them.
Yeah, they're not going to get punished for not stopping a crime.
Thank you. Very well spoken. We like summaries on here. You know what I mean? Once we get a big thing, we like to do a summary. So, B-Dog, let's see what's going on. All right.
Well, hold on. We had some questions before, right? So I wanted to address that comment about 47 deaths a year in the United States.
47,000.
47,000. I'm sorry. Half of those are suicides. If you want to cut out death in the United States via firearms, if you wanted to really make a dent in that, mental health would be the absolute best way to do that. I mean, the number of people that hurt themselves every year is really sick, and also those deaths don't include, they don't separate out like the number of times the police shoot someone, or if you're a private citizen and someone came in your house at 3 a.m. to hurt you and you shoot someone. No one tracks that statistic. I actually did a whole paper about this, about how the FBI categorizes crimes, right? It has a report it puts out every year, and it'll list like all the crimes and if firearms were involved. The CDC records deaths. If you're killed by a firearm, that gets recorded. There's an organization out there of doctors and nurses, ER doctors and nurses, that record when people are injured violently with a firearm, right? But nobody records whether or not a civilian defended themselves or like that. Just so let's say somebody comes in your house at 3 a.m. and you shoot them. The FBI doesn't report it as a crime, so that gets lost. The information's lost.
Okay.
The CDC may record a death, but if they don't die, the information's lost there. And all it comes in is like person injured by assault with a firearm from the medical statistic people. And no one records like what happens. And then also, like, so people have tried to do studies to figure out how many people will resist violence with firearms in the country. There are 2 studies done. One was done by the University of Florida, and then a second study was done a little bit later. And the low estimate would be about 60,000 times a year citizens will prevent injury or death through use of firearms, either by actively shooting it out with people that came in their house, or just by presenting a firearm and scaring off an attacker, which would, I mean, arguably be the best case scenario.
So by banning the firearms, you could increase 60,000 deaths a year, like that's what you're saying. Okay.
Well, that's the low number.
Nick,
the high number is like 1 million.
It is. It's
So
over 1 million. So I just want to add a quick comment, and I'm interested to get to the comments online, but I want to talk about the honesty in the statistics that everybody quotes on all sides. On all sides. So you brought up a good point, and I know this, and Mike knows this too, because we do a lot of analysis of gun crimes. So here's the way. People quote stats all the time, and studies are paid for and bought by certain people, and certain groups have interests that they're trying to study and find validating points for. Here's how the gun crime stats work, and in this state and in this nation. Smithfield, Rhode Island, all the police stations in Rhode Island have to annually report their crimes, and some of the stations do it monthly. You can go on Providence's website month by month. You can see what gun crimes they charged. But some of the stations do it annually. They have to report the gun crimes up to the state police. But each town has some ordinances that are different. So the way they categorize how those crimes break down, okay, is different than the other town. So they all report their things, and they're all a little bit different in how they're done. So something that's called a crime in one town might be judged a different way in a different town. Then it gets up to the state police level, and they have their entire own set of metrics where they plug these numbers into. So they have to go through from the stations and figure out where they fit into theirs. Then the uniform crime report from the state police gets used by the FBI for their reporting for their reports. Those all get pulled for studies depending on who's doing the study to get the numbers that they want to validate their points. And the reality of it is, when you're talking about something that is, and this is going to be hard to hear, that is so statistically insignificant as firearm deaths is, as far as deaths in America and crimes in America, it's hard to get valid, accurate statistics where we can have an honest conversation, a real honest conversation about how do we stop gun deaths. And if you took suicides and gang crimes and from inner cities out of these statistics, it would be infinitesimally small.
Okay, very very interesting. Yeah, so I'm big about speech, and see what you said, how the statistics are different. Each town and state will have a word that they use for something different. Like if they change the word firearm, then assault weapon, then gun, it starts to mean something different. Like I always say, every 10 years, definitions change. If you look at the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie, they go, I thought the midgets were going to play the elves. Midget was not a bad word. Now it's a bad word because you get an argument with somebody, they say, you're so short, you're a midget. Now it's little person, but I would say little person is even discussing their height. It should be more offensive, but it's not. That's why the R word got changed to special needs. Now it's not special needs. Now it's slowly becoming another thing. So that's why what he's saying about stats, words change based on where you are. They don't even mean the same thing. In my reality, like when I interview a psychic, she talks about energy. To me, I can't feel the energy. It doesn't even exist. To her, she's always feeling energy. She goes, did you ever hang out with somebody and absorb their bad energy? Well, I was like, no, I don't know what energy, like, you can't grab it. No, what you're talking about. She's talking about, well, what she means in my mind is, if I start hanging out with somebody who only smokes pot and drinks and lives in a crappy area, I start to absorb their bad habits. So to me, I have a whole, speaking about the same exact thing, we're using different words. So that's why stats are...
Well, I wish it was just that, Nick. I wish that was, like, the whole end and be all of it, and we were just having confusion. But it's really not. The government will put on requirements where, like, if the state police respond to a crime where somebody gets stabbed, right? They have a duty to report that and fill out the report in a certain way so that it can then go up the chain to the state, and then it can go up the chain from there to the uniform crime report the FBI puts out every year. There is rules put in place and regulations put in place by the federal government to create a scenario where that information is logged. But if I get attacked downtown Providence and I pull out my gun and the guy goes, all right, forget it, I don't want your wallet now, and he runs away, the police don't have a duty to put that in a report. I could call them, they could come, and then there's no... They might make a report. They might say, I don't feel like doing the paperwork right now. I'm going to go get a sandwich and I'm going to go home, right? And at the end of the day, there is no crime to report, right? Because the situation was resolved. The crime was ended. So what happens to that information? It gets lost. And that's why we say, like, oh, the low end is 60,000 and the upper end is like 1 million. It's very difficult to extrapolate data when you have to go 1 in every 10 crimes that gets prevented actually ends up on a police report, and then of those, how many of those are lost, and now we're playing a game where we're doing a lot of guessing, where the government has kind of been reluctant to ever do an important study like that the correct way. and they're not interested in finding out that number.
I take exception to your chain of rules command up through the statistics for maybe it applies to some crimes, but I've spent enough time in the stats for firearm crimes. If you go town to town and look at their annual reports, they are reported differently for the same crime. Same thing applies to the state police across the nation. There may be rules in place, but those rules are not stringent enough so that you can accurately look at a set of numbers and apply that set of numbers evenly across all communities.
And especially when we get to the FBI level,
correct.
That's based on state laws still.
Correct.
Right.
Every state has different laws.
And some departments won't report to the FBI
Some
like
won't
they're
report to the
supposed
FBI.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
But even the ones that do, a crime in one state is a felony in one state and a misdemeanor in another.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true
totally
too.
Because each state
Yep.
creates their own laws, their own sets of laws. So
Also, what they
don't
call
line
the law, what's a burglary, what's a home invasion, that varies from state to state,
Right.
and
There are no
and
assault
time and
weapons
place.
out west.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, hold on, guys. I noticed something funny during this podcast. Look at his laptop. It says, I study trigonometry, but
Yeah.
he's not talking about math. It shows it shows firearms.
That's a
funny
good
too.
sticker. You got another one
So-
of those? I need one of those.
Let me just take control of the pace. What we're going to do is we're going to do the comments. So we're going to do the comments one last time, and then we're going to go in a circle, starting with me, to give all of our last arguments. Okay? So I'm going to try to summarize what we've learned here, and then you're going to say all the stuff about anything you forgot you wanted to say, and but. So I'll talk for like 2 minutes. Everybody says something about it, like quick little things. You're gonna talk for like 2 minutes, like this is how I feel about this, final sayings, then talk, and then we'll answer you real quick. Then him. So comments, then closing arguments, I like to call it. Okay. So go and we have some few good comments. So let's see what we want to pull up here. Is this the right spot here,
This is
buddy?
the right spot.
All right. So we don't really have to read these about the anti-gun groups want to disarm legal gun owners, but also. Oh, they're coming in like crazy.
The bottom one is the oldest one.
Okay, so
Start at the bottom and work up.
March for Our Lives was founded by survivors of the 2018 shooting in majority Stoneman Douglas High School, Parkland, Florida, where a 19-year-old gunman killed 17 and injured 17 others in about 4 minutes with an AR-style firearm. Okay, so you're saying that it was a March for Our Lives. Cool. We have a low gun rate of ownership. Fool. Okay. I guess during the conversation, he was referring to what they were talking about. So, anti-gun groups want to disarm legal gun owners.
We don't have a low rate of gun ownership
No,
in this
not
country.
at
I don't know
all.
where he's getting that
Maybe
from.
he might mean
Means Rhode Island.
might mean the Rhode Island or might
Even
mean
in Rhode Island, I think it's something
Yeah.
like 46% of
Yeah.
households have a firearm.
If it's even higher than that. We looked at, the FBI reports the NICS checks numbers monthly. I went through the NICS checks numbers, and I shared this on parabellumprovision.org's website. But if you go through the NICS checks numbers just from 3 years ago to current. Now, these are checks that are for purchasing of firearms by personals. I excluded law firms exchanging firearms and police departments exchanging firearms. And this is a loose metric because it granted it's arguable, but we don't have many points to argue. There were enough NIC checks in 3 years in this state to put a firearm in the hand of 12% of the adult population of Rhode Island.
And that's just in 3 years, right?
Yes.
That's not 100
And that
years.
doesn't count, 100-year-old
does
doesn't
it-
transfer down family
Right,
to family.
right.
Guys, I have a storybook from the Swedish chef here. I have to read it. So whoever's got a pen and is literate, please just write down his points, like summarize it.
Okay.
I got a whole storybook here. Okay, so we're just gonna get through that, then we'll do closing arguments. Okay.
Okay.
Wait to rebuttal it once we're done. Okay. The storybook begins. Chapter 1. Okay. Okay. That's all right. I'm just making sure we read that. In the United States, gun violence resulted in approximately 40,886 deaths in 2024. According to Alert's 2024 gun violence report, this figure includes homicides, suicides, and unintentional shootings, while the number of total of gun deaths increased by 9% compared to 2023. More than 5,200 of those killed were children and teens. Next one, Swedish chef still here. An assault weapon commonly used in legal and political context. Oh yeah, we already got through that. Firearm preventable government, we already got through that. 27,000 people died by firearm suicide. 17,927 died by firearm violence. 463 died by unintentional gun injury, and an estimate 604 were fatally shot by law enforcement. In addition, an average of I don't have to read the end of it. Yeah, it's just, yeah, so as we say, gun deaths vary widely across the United States due to differences associated. We already read that. He posted here some data, Center for Gun Violence. Okay, majority of Americans are in favor. A majority of Americans are in favor of gun control. 57% of Americans surveyed said they wanted stricter gun laws, according to polling by Gallup in November 2022. 32% said gun laws should remain the same, while 10% people surveyed they should not be made less strict. Democrats are nearly unanimous in their support for stricter gun laws. Another Gallup study noted in 2021 with nearly 91% in favor of stricter gun laws. Only 24% Republicans, on the other hand, agreed with the same statement, along with 45% of independent voters. Some states have taken steps to ban or strictly regulate ownership of assault weapons. Laws vary by state, but California, for example, has banned ownership of assault weapons with limited exceptions. Then we have Mr. Sosa rebuttaling him there. Access to firearms drastically increase the likelihood of suicide, and a gun in the home is associated with more gun homicide. Again, a state like Rhode Island has a low gun violence relative to the strength of its laws. Likely it's due part by very low gun ownership rate. On the other hand, states like Nevada and New Mexico have higher rates of gun violence than their laws might suggest, perhaps in part of ownership. And he has some stats posted there in assault weapon high capacity magazines frequently. I think we already read that from... Oh, hold on, we did not read this. Hold on. If I already read this, tell me. Assault weapons and high-capacity magazines are frequently used in the violence that plagues our nation. From 2015 to 2022, mass shootings with 4 or more people killed where an assault weapon was used resulted in nearly 6 times as many people shot. More than twice as many people killed in 2023 as many people wounded. Average compared to that did not involve the use of one. Some states, Washington, D.C., have enacted legislation to prohibit firearms. Whoa, I told you it was a storybook, guys. Whoa. Whoa, this one's... I actually have to summarize this one. This one's the whole screen.
No.
I'm going to try to summarize it. Trauma surgeons and coroners will tell you the high-velocity bullets fired from military semi-automatic assault weapons moves almost 3 times as fast as a 9mm handgun bullet, delivering more energy. The bullets create cavities to the victim. He's talking about that guns are very dangerous. Okay. An assault weapon then is... First graders and teachers in Newtown, Connecticut didn't either. An assault weapon then is a handheld weapon of war, capable of spraying a crowd with more than lethal fire in seconds. First graders and teachers in Newton, Connecticut didn't either, nor did dancers at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, nor concert goers in Las Vegas, nor teenagers at Majority Stone in Douglas, Parkland, Florida. So he just keeps going on about, you know, the mass shootings, the quote. All right, so oh yeah, a little bit more. Holy crap! Yeah, I gotta summarize that. Some groups have higher rates of firearm injury than others. Men account for 86 of all victims of firearm death and 87 of firearm injuries. The effects of firearm violence and injury. You know what, B-Dog, can you...
I can't see the
you go on your phone. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say to rebuttal him a little bit is that I did interview the head of Moms Against Gun Violence at the State House. I interviewed her. And hey, check this out. Just give me the mic for a second, then we'll get to you guys. This is so important to this, is why I'm interested in this. I interviewed a man named Joe downstairs with a yellow shirt. He said, when the UK banned firearms, the homicide rate went up because they just started stabbing each other, and they let in a bunch of people, and now they have a higher homicide rate without the weapons that people still wanted to kill.
That's correct.
The lady upstairs that wants to ban assault weapons gave me the same exact argument, but she said firearm homicide rates went almost to 0. She's right, and so is Joe downstairs. So what really happened is that the homicides kind of went from, because the weapons are available, they were shooting each other because people still want to kill. They take the guns away. Now
the criminals are still there.
Criminals are still there, still want to stab each other. So you might have homicide rates the same, but people quote lower firearm rates.
The knives may be more deadly than the guns are. That's why there's more homicide deaths, because more people are stabbing.
They're more likely to use them.
Yeah. So both sides are right. It's just how you. It's like how you view the painting. Both sides are somewhat correct. Okay. Wish I could get him on the phone. Okay. Let me just read one last thing from. All right. Oh, I think I already read that. Okay, this is the last one. Oh no, already read that. Okay, sorry, those are old comments. Okay, so that's what he's just using a lot of quotes talking about the mass shootings, saying like, look at how dangerous these things are. Okay.
talking about feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then that's why I do like to argue though sometimes. It's like in life it's like, all right, you know what else is a feeling? Should you be able to, all right, I'm pretty sure it's legal to sleep with your sister. But feelings, everybody agrees you shouldn't be doing that. But it's not illegal. So I'm talking about, like, this is logically, if I love my sister, she has her tubes tied, so do I. Why can't we sleep together? You know, I don't know why I'm saying this during a Smithfield Town meeting.
I know, I've never met your
This
sister.
is, I think you got. You went a little off with
Yeah, another Red Bull.
I'm good. It's the Red Bull. So sorry, Mike.
What he's saying is something that's
Yeah.
what he's saying is something that's immoral could also be legal, whereas something that's illegal might not be immoral.
All right.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
that's
I'm just
it,
saying
yeah.
that
Yes.
we can't always look
Well
at
worded,
100%.
Yeah.
We
That's
can't
it.
always talk about everything has to be ruled logically 100% of the time. Sometimes things have to be ruled emotionally, like that thing I was just talking about. Sorry for everybody listening. What's up?
Okay, so yes, and we were talking about gun violence. Gun violence is a term that's thrown around a lot, and it's not very well defined. It's not very accurately defined, and like you mentioned, 60% or more are suicides. Right, 60% or more of gun deaths are suicides, which, if they don't have a gun, they'll find another way to do it. They'll overdose on sleeping pills. They'll do something
Right.
to find a way.
Not having a firearm isn't going to affect suicide rates. Look at Japan and Korea; they have some of the highest suicide rates in the world,
And they use it with
and they don't have
swords.
any firearms
Or
to
they
be shooting
jump,
themselves
yeah.
with.
Good point.
So it's not gonna taking away the gun would just lead to somebody doing it in a way that's probably worse for them in the long run.
And
So-
yeah, and back on that. After that, we have most of these are not random. Most people, when you think about gun violence, or when you're scared of someone that's going to kill you with a gun, you're thinking of a random act of violence. Someone just walks into a grocery store and shoots it. Most of these are not random. Most of the violence that happens is gun violence, the gang violence, or there's a previous history between that person and the destination that they chose, either an individual or a person. Which
These are not closing arguments. What we're doing right now, so thank you,
Debating
Mike.
the-
So I hopefully somebody wrote down or kind of summarized what that
Yes.
person was saying. So we're just trying to debate their points that they made on the comments. Then I'm gonna say, guys, these are official closing arguments. So we're still debating the comments. So go ahead, anybody.
I'd like to add in on something they said. I'd like everybody to remember that when we throw statistics around, we can pull numbers out to shape any argument that we want. So what I heard in the stats that I've had conversations respectfully with this gentleman that's posting previously, and I have the greatest respect for his passion and his feelings and his beliefs, and he should have them and keep defending them. But when you say that a semi-automatic that's used in a deadly killing accounts for whatever the percentage, and it's way high, you have to remember you're looking at less than 1% of the overall deaths with firearms. So if you go look at less than 1% of the picture, you can pull statistics out that say it's 90% of the problem, but it's 90% of 1% of the problem.
You're zooming into what you want to see.
Exactly.
And then, yeah, so okay. So
Exactly.
it's technically true, but you're zoomed into just what you want to focus on.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So
Right.
everybody argue
Also,
what the guy
also
was
when
saying.
he was talking about the 40,000 deaths, right? He brought up, 500 of them were basically kids, and if you're looking at that statistic, you need to do more looking into that statistic as to what the government considers kids and teens. They what they'll do is they'll up the number to 19 years old, which is not what you would think of in terms of
Child.
like kids and teens. They cut out everyone that's under the age of 1, so they can cut out all the congenital defects and immediate deaths that'll happen, and then they raise the age to 19. And so, like, if you look at just teens by themselves, the way that they die is actually car accidents, right? And if you look at young adults up to 25, the way that they die is also car accidents, because they're learning how to drive, they started drinking, and they're learning how to do it responsibly, and they end up messing up, right? But what they do with the CDC is they mess with those statistics. So they'll take out all the congenital defect deaths as infants, and then they'll raise the age up to 19 so they can get all the young guy gang violence involved, and then they'll say, oh, kids are more likely to die from firearms than anything else. It's a lie. And then they'll do the same thing for young adults, but they'll push the age to 35 so they can offset all of the drunk driving incidents. it's actually disgusting how the CDC
It's
does its statistics.
The conversations aren't honest, and that was my point. I'd love to have the honest conversation. They're not honest when you put 19 and 20-year-olds
and when even if we just go by the raw numbers here, we accept them as they are. 40,000 deaths, 17,000 of them are violent. How many of those were defense? How many of those were self-defense? Show me where they're tracking that number. How do we weed them out? Are 10% of them self-defense? Are 20% of them? Are half of them self-defense? We don't know.
They're not, because if a guy comes running up on my car and I've shouted for him to stop and he keeps coming and I pull my firearm and I don't have to discharge it, he sees it, gets scared and runs off, I'm not calling the police.
Well, those numbers are just lost.
So
but even in the 17,000 that were violent deaths, what percentage of those were people using self-defense?
So I have
we don't know.
I have an interesting case too that we looked up that I caught on one of the reports we were going through a month ago, and it was reported as a gun violence or a mass death, mass casualty event. And what happened was a disturbed individual took his vehicle, ran through a crowd of people, killed 4 or 5 people, injured a dozen others. A cop showed up and shot him.
Oh, now it's a mass shooting.
And now because more than 4 people died and there was a gun involved.
Yep.
It was classified as a mass shooting event.
Also,
the only person that was shot was the person that was.
This is
driving
on
the car.
every town's gun tracker. It's it's a great resource. They list every shooting in the entire. I use it all the time. It's fantastic. But they listed it as a mass casualty because a guy drove a car into a crowd and the cop shot him.
And it was a gun violence statistic because the cop shot him because there was a gun involved.
Right, because there was a gun involved. The way that they record the mass death incidents really needs better definitions and better ways of defining things in general. So when you hear the term mass shooting, what my mind thinks of, and I'm assuming most people's minds go to a place where somebody goes into a supermarket and starts shooting people, or goes into a school and starts shooting people randomly, right?
The keyword there is random.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
But there's also familicide. So somebody goes home, they shoot their family. That's awful. It's tragic. It's bad. They probably would have done it another way if they didn't have a gun because they're crazy. But why are we tracking that the same way as we would what's essentially like a terrorist attack?
Gang violence is also considered mass
because
shootings.
the reason we track it that way is because the people that are opposed to the firearm ownership and that want to ban them, they want the public to have a sense of fear and imminent danger when it doesn't exist because nobody's just walking around. Almost every single mass shooting, school shooting that we would think of with common sense is a mass shooting.
Sure.
Not the way they classify them as you were discussing. Those people were being treated for mental disorders or on some prescription meds.
Yeah, a very large amount of them are on SSRIs, which is
the mass number of those were also related to the school. Yeah. They went to school there in the past.
Yeah.
They picked it because they were familiar with the location. Because
it wasn't really random.
It wasn't
so the narrative is driven. So
I would
that
still
the public,
argue that is a legit mass shooting, though. Like
I
is like
yes.
basically a terrorist attack from someone you know, right? It's a terrible tragedy.
Yes.
And we should work to prevent them, but the way that we track that word mass shooting, however you want it, whatever term you want to use, it's not we don't do it in a good way. We don't do it in a way where it's honest to what's actually happening.
And it's not honest to drive a narrative.
That's why you can get such varying numbers where you'll see there's been 400 of them last year, or there's been 400 of them since 1980, right? And you'll get wide-ranging statistics on it because it's how are you counting them? What are you weeding out? What are you listing separately? If 6 gang members have a dispute over a basketball court and they all shoot each other, is that a mass shooting?
It is by the CDC's statistics.
Well, they'll count it as one. They counted it as one in Rhode Island, but it was actually
Chicago all the time.
It's not what we would think of when we think of mass shooting. We would say, well, that's gang violence, but it is a mass shooting. But it's not the same kind of terrorist event. So we need better terms and better ways of.
Agreed.
I'm not saying we shouldn't track that stuff. I'm saying we need to.
And the FBI and DOJ don't even have a definition
of
a mass shooting.
No.
Mass murder.
Well, they define them differently.
They have a definition of mass shooting. They don't have a definition of mass murder.
CDC and FBI actually have a different statistic that they use.
And then the organization that we were looking at, what was that? It wasn't Rhode Island Coalition. It was
GOA or somebody.
It wasn't even Everytown. It was the Gun Violence Coalition.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Gun Violence Coalition is one that other case I mentioned came up. They have a different definition of, I believe it's where 4 or more people are killed or injured in an event involving a gun.
Okay.
Whereas the FBI definition of a mass shooting is where 4 or more people are killed with a gun.
Right.
Not 4 people are killed and there's a gun present.
So I think like a
or
better.
4 people were wounded. And there were some cases in that study where not a single person died. There were a lot of injured, but none of them died. But they counted that where the federal government doesn't.
I feel like
So it's all
if we
definitions
were going
the
to
way
try
that-
to fix this, we would have to get real specific. Like people were intentionally injured with a fire, so we rule out any accidents or
Agreed.
anything that happened.
Agreed.
That the event was done for XYZ reasons in such and such a manner.
Yeah.
But nobody's interested in doing that
That is
because
correct.
they want to keep this data vague so that you can make any argument you want.
They consider an injury as a casualty too. So when you see on TV mass casualty event, you think, oh my God, so many people died, and then you find out later someone just got their ankle sprained or
So
something.
the,
like,
the,
you know,
the, the
like-
federal
yeah.
definition of a mass casualty, and I just learned this
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, is any event where the number of injured that require attention outnumbers the amount of supplies you have on hand at the moment.
Huh.
Okay.
That's the definition of a
That's
mass
such a
casualty.
weird definition, but okay.
Because that's coming from an EMT or a medical point of
Sure.
view. If you have a lot of people with injuries, you don't have enough tourniquets, enough splints, enough
And it makes
stuff
sense
to-
for them, but when somebody else repeats that later at a town hall meeting, it paints a very different picture in people's minds.
So make sure make sure we respond to those comments, and then we're going to do the closing arguments, okay?
Sure.
So I see a lot of things were written down. Now,
So
is there any
I'll
other-
bring up another one, right? So we were talking about low ownership, and I'd love to know how he knows that. Because as far as I know, there's no registries or anything
Go to the
like
comment.
that.
I think he posted some type of a source.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
They're kind of devolved into insults now, so I don't know if we should read them.
Oh, no, what I meant is go to the comments.
I
when
can't go
he's-
back to the original
When he,
comment.
all
I'll
right, so
find
anyway,
it.
I do
Yeah.
want to credit him when he said something. He did post a bunch of source stuff. Now, as you guys said, the sources can zoom in onto one thing and inflate it or deflate it based on how they want. So, I think that I'm allowed to read some of this stuff. Can we all handle it? Nobody's gonna pull out a gun and shoot me if they get mad, right? Like, we're all-
No.
Okay,
No.
good. So I'm gonna read a little bit because I told people how I want to know how they feel, and I'm really against the type of censorship. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, I didn't realize that we have stuff that happens.
It's starting to get like,
Okay, let me. I'll
insults.
pick some stuff here.
Hey guys, you should be friendlier to each other in the comment section. Nobody's trying to hurt anyone,
All right.
generally speaking, when
It
it
was-
comes to this debate.
They were
you
just
know?
devolving into insults instead of debate, so it's kind of pointless to read them.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody deserves to be heard. If there's anything really weird, I won't.
There is some bad stuff.
No one needs an AR-15 for self-protection. You're a clown. Thank you, Governor McKee. The majority of Americans supports ban on guns ownership. It's truth. People are sick of mass shootings. We have more gun deaths than any other country in the world. It's disgusting. It's your truth.
We don't.
Blank.
28.
Statistics don't lie. When your child dies, I don't like arguing about statistics because at the same time I can go to a different website that say guns are so good and they save so many lives, and the same different website on the same exact day will say how bad they are. So statistics, they are part of the argument, but I don't like delving into them because we literally just find people using the same words showing me different statistics. So it's like when two opposite forces just go doosh and they just stop. It's
Well,
almost like I don't wanna
I
get
do
it.
want to pick on a couple of things, and I'm just going to say them quick. So we
Uh-huh.
talked about how, ownership was low, and that's probably why gun deaths in Rhode Island were low. That's a total supposition. And if that was true, and that was a true thing we could prove it anywhere. And Switzerland's a great example of how that isn't true.
Correct.
In Switzerland, gun ownership is mandatory for citizens. After they do their military service, they have to take them home and keep them for the use of Switzerland's defense. or
Second
whatever.
largest ownership next to the U.S.
Right, and the per capita
Sweden's
a lot
high,
less
too.
people, and there's a lot of guns.
Sweden's
And-
very high because of they're worried about the animals, really, to protect
Right,
themselves
yeah.
against the bears.
Also,
and,
they're worried
yeah.
about Russia, probably,
true.
to a certain extent. But in both of those countries, the gun death rates are really, really low. And I think when you look at, Rhode Island versus Texas or something like that, you're not doing a one-to-one comparison. You're doing a comparison where the culture is different, the amount of money people make a year is different, the response time of police is different. There's so many different things.
New York
that go
versus
into it.
New York versus like somewhere out in Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? You can't pass a law that works in New York City with all the cramped people. In Tennessee, there's people spread all apart. You know, they're trying to.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well,
The point is, we're discussing a birthright, and I want to bring that right back to the table. We're discussing a birthright in this country, period, that our government has been constrained from infringing upon, regardless of feelings involved. And
it's not an American birthright. It's a human
birthright.
right.
Yeah. But our founders codified it in writing
Yes,
for
they
our
did.
citizens.
Yes, they did.
So it's keep in mind. I am compassionate to anyone that loses their life to violence, and I will sit beside anybody to talk on ways to prevent that and work on any counsel to help do that.
Yeah. I think
But
we all agree on that.
This is just like the First Amendment. It is a natural right to defend ourselves, and I'm just gonna. You can't have the guns. Stop.
I think the argument that I've heard from a lot of people who are in general against the Second Amendment is they think that you shouldn't need to defend yourself because humans should just be nice to each other. That's what they think the deal is. That if you own a gun, then now you're the aggressor.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
But
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's that ideology, though. That's the ideology
But
that
I have
think
a
they have.
kind of anecdote that kind of goes
Yeah.
with that as well. And part of that is, and I don't want to get into the whole religion thing, but as America started becoming more atheist or agnostic and not going to church, a lot of this has gotten more aggressive. And we've had more of these incidents over that same last 60, 70 years that we've been less I don't want to say religious, but less religious. In Sweden, they're not religious. There's a very low rate of churchgoers, but they have a lot of community events and a lot of community activities every week or every weekend where they get together as a group. We don't have that. We stay in our own little cliques, or now everyone's online. Everyone stays in their living room on their computer or on their phone, typing away, and they have a couple friends they talk to, and it's us against them. We don't have these large gatherings of people that 50 years ago, 60 years ago, we would go at church. It would be like 150 people, and we'd go and hang out, and we'd talk to everyone, and it would have to be civil because we're all in person. Sweden, same thing. High levels of gun ownership, high levels of community organization, community involvement.
Everybody likes each other.
Yeah, I
It's
heard
not
it.
that they like each other, but they're forced to get along with each other because they're all together. We don't have that anymore. We've gotten away from that. We don't have the community. We don't have people getting together in a community.
There's
I
a
invite
famous
friends over.
study done about, like, from sociologists about people who, this is unrelated to firearms, but people that do events, community events, like if you belong to one group, maybe it's like a bowling team or whatever, if you go once a week to an event like that, you're 50% less likely to die this year than if you didn't. There's like a crazy statistic about
Yeah,
that,
let me see.
where that really helps people have better mental states. It helps with your health. It helps in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Humans are supposed to be social creatures. Like,
It's real quick. Say Smith Appleby House, when there was only 10 houses on Stillwater Road in Smithfield, you can't go, like, say, it's trying to remain appropriate, but you can't, like, go assault or molest somebody's daughter because they know what house you are, they know who it is. There's only 10 people in the town. Everybody's accountable every day for what goes on. If you can't steal something, they're going to see it in your barn the next day. When you live in a big city where you're going to see somebody once, I'm going to see you once and never see you again, you can get away with something that you're not accountable.
Sure.
Small communities and tight-knit communities make you accountable for everything. You can't go get drunk every day because people are going to approach you about it. You live in a city alone, nobody's going to approach you. Anyway.
and that might be why Rhode Island has less violent crime than like another similar state, despite having lesser gun laws, is because we're small, and like if you do something crazy, word's going to spread. It's going to be tough to keep a secret.
Honestly, everybody in this state is connected to everybody somehow.
Also, when you have less crime to begin with, you're maintaining a smaller number of crimes, so the police have more energy to commit to, like, you rob a house, right? Well, the police are going to investigate that in Smithfield. They have a lot of resources and time to do that, which means that you don't go rob another house, which means you don't elevate to robbing a liquor store, which means you don't eventually shoot someone in the course of robbing a liquor store. Like, if the community's already struggling with crime and crime is rampant, you're going to have less resources to deal with the petty crimes, which means those crimes evolve into bigger crimes later.
Especially when you get to defund the police and all that stuff. That just less people to enforce the law, it's hard to
I have
find.
another important comment that came in we can address if you want.
Yeah, you talking about the Swedish chef?
No. Well, this comment right here, it says, when we talk about home invasions being an important self-defense. It says guns don't keep you safe. When someone breaks into your home, they will use your gun on you.
How are they going to do that?
And
Yeah.
hold on, and buy an alarm system or get a dog. Guns don't protect you. I'm just wanted to read this stuff. I know everybody doesn't agree with that. They have twisted the definition. Second Amendment does not say that. Okay, so I'm just going to start the get your ideas together for your closing arguments.
What was the comment about the Second Amendment doesn't say that? What is he referring to?
No, that's the thing, is that's why I didn't give much mind to it, because he's typing that when we're speaking about something, so we're not sure in the last 5-10 minutes which one he's meant, so that's why I didn't really want to delve into that. But yeah, everybody's going to interpret. Like when I write a poem, half people are going to say it's good, half people are going to say it sucks. Second Amendment, people are going to try to interpret it differently. I don't know how to fix that issue. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the closing argument here, and then I guess when we do the closing argument, I'm going to do it's like say 1.5 minutes long. Then you guys don't start a whole nother thing. You just give little sentences if you want to about it, okay? Then we're going to go to Mike. He's going to do like a 1-minute thing about how he felt about everything and the takeaways, okay? And then you just little comments on it. Don't start a whole sidetrack on it, talking about in 1770 whatever, okay? And then we just do everybody's closing argument, okay? So just think about the final stuff you wanted to say, all right? So my idea everybody's points make sense and they're true. The problem is that we share an area with other people. Like the big takeaway is just picture, like I said, the person on Man School Road that needs to defend his family with his 2-year-old daughter in her room, that his house gets broken into. He needs a firearm to do that. You're going to cause deaths by removing his firearm. At the same time, the single mother that lives in the apartments on Pleasant View Ave, you could cause a death to her by letting her maniac neighbor own a firearm. So both of these sides on this argument will cause a death. What we argue about is which one's going to cause more or be a safer option. And everybody has a reality. Some people do live where they don't have room for a safe, they are not interested in owning a firearm, and it's going to affect them negatively. That's true. At the same time, there's many people that just live in the suburbs, that there's break-ins down the street, they don't want to be a victim of this senseless violence, okay? Both are true at the same time. That's how I interpret this, okay? I'm going to switch it to my left. Hello, Mike.
Yes, hi. So yeah, the biggest things I want to mention is, one, I don't want to force anyone to own a gun if they don't want to own a gun, right? If you're not into guns, you don't like guns, absolutely, you shouldn't have one, right? That's your right. We're not trying to make you own a gun. We're not trying to force anyone on anything on anyone that doesn't want it. If you do want to own a gun or you're questioning it, I recommend you take a safety class to learn how to handle a gun safely, so there aren't any accidental discharges. We reduce the accidental shootings from there. I do, with Bellum Provisions and with the community instructors around, Dan and I work with, we do offer classes in Smithfield. Most of them are free. The ones that aren't free, we try to keep the price as low as possible. We subsidize some of those, and some of that comes out of our own pockets to do so. So that we can try to increase the safety of everyone that does want to use a firearm. If you're questioning, do you want to or not, it's a good opportunity to get out and see what it is like.
Even if you just want more knowledge, if you don't want to own a firearm, you want to learn more about them, you're welcome. And we don't care about your political affiliation.
If your neighbor has one and you're scared of it, this might give you a little bit enough of an education that, well, okay, maybe if they're doing things by the law and following the safety protocols, safety methods that we teach, then maybe it's not as dangerous as I thought it was originally.
Very nice closing argument. Can you please just briefly describe Smithfield's situation at the Sportsman Club? Can I go there and they have a firearm that I can use, or do I have to bring my own firearm? I've actually never been there. It's a shooting range? They got a backstop? Like there's not like a house behind it that you're gonna hit somebody? Like just briefly explain what's going on there.
Yeah. So it's
behind the Thirsty Beaver, right?
Behind the Thirsty Beaver on Walter Carey Road in Smithfield. Yes, it's a private club, so you can go there if you are a member, or members can bring guests to the facility. The club itself does not have guns available to just anyone that walks in and can use. But if you go with me or another member, we can bring a firearm and let you shoot that. For the classes that we do, we usually provide the firearms and the ammunition for those classes. We bring our.
Don't you guys do a Settlers Day once a year?
Settlers Day is Manville. We do a Smithfield does a open house, a field day. Smithfield sponsors a field day. It's I think it's the fourth Sunday in September every year. It could be the third Sunday. I forget. Off the top
We
of my
have
head, but
a
it's-
there's a schedule where we do one weekend, you do the weekend before us.
Yeah,
all the
there's-
clubs
all
have
the clubs
a different.
have different weekends, and I think yours is a 2-day thing. Mine's a 1-day.
Yep.
But yeah, we had that. You can come into the club. You can see a bunch of vendors. You can shoot the long guns, the handguns. You can shoot a potato gun that we have. It's compressed air powered. It's all fun. We have little BB guns for the kids. We have a little, magnet fishing thing for the little ones, so they can practice fishing. It's a fishing derby for the youth on our stock pond.
Yeah, so real quick, if somebody shoots there, though, you can go there without any firearm knowledge, and somebody similar to Mike Gilmain will show you, this is how you reload it, this is how you point it only down range, right?
If you go one of the days where it's
If you go
open
one
to
of the
the
days where
public,
we have it open to the public or a class scheduled, or you go with a member who's able to teach you that information. It's not open. You can't just drive in there.
right? There
on
are
a Tuesday
other places
afternoon.
you could go, like Mid-State and stuff, that are for-profit businesses that will also teach you and like let you rent guns there. And
Yeah, like
stuff
the Range
that.
RI in Exeter.
Yeah,
or MTR in North Smithfield.
Yup. There's one in Attleboro, I
American
think, too.
Firearms School.
American Firearms School. Yeah.
yeah.
There's
There's a
a
couple
handful
others.
of them across the area that you can look them up on Google and you can find one. Whereas gun clubs
Mid-State.
are private. Yeah, that was the one I mentioned
Yeah,
initially.
there's the preserve down in
Yeah.
Kingston.
Anything else on Mike's end? Very nice closing argument. You gonna add anything, or are you good? Are you gonna hand it off to Dan? What do you want to do?
I'll hand up Dan. I think just education is key, right? Learn what you don't know and don't be afraid of learning.
Very nice. Very well said. What's going on?
All right, so to just try and wrap up the topic that we've discussed today, those who would like to ban firearms and those who would like to keep firearms can coexist. I can't, I don't want to tell you what hobbies to have, and I know that might be oversimplifying, but I can't tell you I don't want you bowling because your bowling ball could fall on my toes, right? And
Yeah.
so we can coexist. Responsible firearm owners, even if they own what some deem as an assault weapon, are not a danger. The problem that we have in society is criminals and mental health. And criminals do not follow laws, and we in this state specifically don't have enough mental health support options. If we prosecute crimes, people that use firearms irresponsibly or negatively, we go lock up that guy that is beating his wife that has firearms because he shouldn't be doing that. It's against the law. Then the woman in the apartment doesn't have to worry. So if we take care of the laws we have on the books, we can all coexist. And that's pretty much how I want to wrap it up.
And just adding to that, I do know that if you have some type of mental disorder or you commit a violent crime, your firearms are revoked. I know someone who
Correct.
went to a mental hospital and the firearms went away. The police kindly came to the firearms. So it's not like somebody can be cuckoo if the police know about it and keep owning the firearms.
It does depend on why you go to the mental hospital. If it's voluntary, it's usually not a disqualifying factor. If it's court ordered, it is. So
Which I think is important for people
it's
to
a big
know.
distinction.
Because some people might not, some firearms owners might not seek out the mental health that they need. And I hate to put it to a category of people, but it happens to a lot of vets. You can get yourself into a bad situation, and I don't want to see people end up being one of those, 6% of suicides that are caused by firearms.
And another
right?
big one is either divorces if someone doesn't see
Yeah.
it coming,
Yup.
or if a loved one passes away, car accident, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be a violent crime. It
Yup.
could be a complete accident, dies in their sleep,
Yup.
heart attack, and then they get depressed because the person they've lived with and loved for the last 40
Also,
years
if
is no longer with them.
also if you get them taken away, it doesn't mean they're taken away forever. There's a
Well,
process
in
to get
this
them
state,
back.
that process means they're taken away
yeah,
forever. But
yeah. Unfortunately, it's not as good as it should be. But
Right.
I think it's important for people to know you can can get help. You can go call a therapist and go and talk to somebody about your problems, and they don't necessarily take your guns away.
Correct.
Yeah.
So give me a little summary closing argument here with Marcus. I know you're real good with the data, ultra organized. I can notice that ultra organized.
Yeah, there was a few things we never got to talk about that people brought up, like ballistics. They think AR-15s do more damage than other guns. Like a hunting rifle would be safer. It isn't. It does way more damage than an AR-15. It's just you could just go on YouTube and look up like how ballistics work in terms of weight versus speed and what it does to, tissue. There's all kinds of resources out there. I don't want to talk to people's ignorance. I think at the end of the day, these arguments, some of them come from a place where people don't know what they're talking about, and that's always very frustrating. But sometimes people still know what they're talking about. They make good points, and I think that for each individual person, it comes down to a question of, like, what do you prioritize in society? We have, like, safety, virtue, and liberty. And I think gun owners generally put liberty at the top, and the real vehement anti-gun people are putting safety at the top. And that's why I think we spent a lot of time talking today about how your safety isn't necessarily impacted in a beneficial way by removing your neighbor's ability to own a firearm or to have certain firearms or whatever. In other words, like, me with a machine gun, like the scariest thing you can imagine, and me with, like, a one-shot musket have the same level of danger, because I'm not going to come and hurt you. Like, no matter which one you give me, right?
I got you,
like,
yeah.
there are, and, like, when we talk about, like, nobody needs an AR-15, you see these arguments, and that's just flatly not true. There have been many instances where people have stopped situations with an AR-15. There's an interesting study put out, and it's in our list. We put a list of sources up there, but there's one called Armed Civilians. Do Armed Civilians Stop Active Shooters More Effectively Than Police? And we had there's a chart in there with statistics, and the bottom line is armed civilians stop mass shootings about a third of the time. Police stop mass shootings about a third of the time, and another third of the time, I don't know, they run out of ammunition and get away until they get caught later, or they shoot themselves, whatever. And armed citizens, not only do they do it just about as frequently as police, in fact, slightly more, they hurt other people, innocent bystanders, less than the police do. Police had 19 casualties that they took themselves in these instances. Armed citizens only had 2. Armed citizens shot 1 person incorrectly. Police do it about 0.63% of the time. So this is like about a dozen times when they shot the wrong person, either one another or another person that was on scene. And it's simply because they have to walk into a situation 10 minutes after it's already started. Mm-hmm. And so more deaths are going to happen, more danger for you and your kids and other people you may care about. And, if you have a neighbor there that's willing to help, they'll stop it. They stop it faster. I mean, the third most deadly U.S. shooting was spring something, Texas. The neighbor was, like, in his underwear hanging out at home, heard the shooting happen next door. He ran out with an AR-15, ran across the street, got into a gunfight with the guy. The guy flees. The neighbor, now in his underwear with, like, an AR-15, flagged a car down in the road, told the guy in the car what happened, and they chased that guy down and shot him on the side of the highway. Like, they ended that mass shooting because he had an AR-15 and because he was willing to act. So when people tell me, like, there's no reason to have these guns and all you need is a revolver or a bolt action or a musket or wherever you think the line is in your head, remember, a third of mass shootings are stopped by people that have assault weapons and are dangerous, but they're not really.
But it's confusing because it's still reported as a mass shooting involved an AR or an assault rifle.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Because
well, I mean, in that particular case in Texas, they both had them.
Yeah. Right, but even if it was one side, it'd still be reported that way because it's not an untrue statement.
It's not untrue, right?
But it's also skewed or biased in the way it's reported on.
Yeah, there was a lot of incidents like that with that shooting. I forget where it was. It was the mall where the guy was there with his family and he pulled out his pistol and shot the guy from several yards away. It was like something crazy. It was a long shot. And the other guy had the assault rifle and was doing the mass shooting and the bad stuff. Yeah. And the guy with the pistol stopped him, but some news agencies didn't report that correctly. And
you'd hate to have that in your obituary. Died by a guy in his underwear.
Right? Yeah. Who was a off-duty mall Santa? So Santa in his underwear with an AR-15 stopped a mass shooting in Texas. That's the thing.
Isn't that crazy that he wasn't the one that was mentally ill?
Right. It would, if you saw it playing out, it would appear to be the other way around.
Yeah.
And that's how the police end up shooting the wrong person sometimes.
The way they look.
Imagine they walked into the middle of that. They didn't. But imagine they had showed up on scene for that. Like, ooh. I don't know who I would trust in that scenario.
So, B-Dog, you've been quiet throughout this. Tell me a little bit, what are you thinking? You want a closing argument?
Yep, I got the closing argument. So basically, I found a little bit of statistics here that we might not have found online otherwise. So it looked like I asked about Rhode Island deaths with firearms. They're saying firearm-related suicides, 93 deaths in 2020. So 65% of firearm deaths in Rhode Island was from suicide. 46 deaths, 32% was directly homicide. So you can see suicides far outrank homicides here. The next one was 70% of firearms used in crimes were purchased through illegal means. 30% were legal. So this is the majority right here. The vast majority of 70% were illegal firearms.
Through straw purchasing, I noticed it pointed out. I don't know if people know what that is, but that's
What's
when
that mean?
that's when somebody go. Let's say I go. Let's say you're a felon, right? You're a felon. You're known to be violent. You're not supposed to own guns, but I can. So you give me a couple of $100 extra, and I go and I buy a gun for you. That's a straw purchase. The other way it could be defined as like gangs will purchase through straw purchasing. So if I go to a gun store and I want to buy 15 guns, I'm going to trigger a whole bunch of alerts and alarms. But I can get like the girlfriends of all the guys in the gang and their cousins and their other friends. Everybody goes out and buys like one firearm all across the state. And now we've got 100 of them for the gang to use, right? So that's what straw purchasing is. And
to point out, you're lying on a federal form when you do that because you're saying you're not buying it for someone else and giving it to someone that's not
well,
allowed
it
to own
depends on the state
So
too. You could be buying them through a Walmart parking lot, depending
Right,
on
I
the
mean,
state.
if you're not buying them through an FFL or through a dealer, maybe not
we
the
think
case,
about
but-
that here in Rhode Island because that's one of the laws we did have, and maybe that's why we had less gun violence than another state. We'd have to look at all of that and try to figure out piece by piece, and nobody does the homework on it, and it's tough.
Anything else?
My argument though, from these stats that we had reviewed, right? So 70% of the firearms used are illegal, and the majority of them, 65%, were suicides. It's my argument. The same thing is with the drugs and alcohol. I think that we shouldn't make laws making these illegal. We should have education. You should have like alcohol, for example. It can be a weapon or it can be something that can help you, a tool, a medicine, whatever, right? Education will help it lean more towards the medicine, the tool, but recklessness, being uneducated, will lead towards the danger. I think the guns are the same thing. Don't ban them because that's going to lead more danger, less education, more ignorance. Make them legal and have education available for people to learn.
I would point out that in Switzerland they do have government-sponsored free shooting days, and they do educate everyone on how to shoot and stuff, and they take it very seriously, and they do have less deaths.
I'd like to say, since segue, that's perfect segue, just so everybody knows, in the state of Rhode Island, there are 80 to 100 firearm classes available to the general public in this state every month. You can take classes in this state right up to clearing the room and tactical training, and train right beside the police, same classes the police officers are taking, all available to the public if you go and search it out. So there's education here, and you have organizations like ours that do it for free.
I'd love to look into that, by the way. If you guys have a card or something I can take.
I would like to say that I personally think that a lot of people become like a half-baked gun collector. They'll buy like a bunch of different AR-15s, or they'll have like 6 Glocks or something. And you can do that, and that's fine. And I think you're cool. Let's hang out and go to the gun range. I'd love to play with some of your toys. But I think that if you spent some of that money on good training, you would be a lot more effective.
Yeah.
Even with a half-assed gun and really great training, you're significantly more prepared, more however you want to look at it. You're in a better position than having great toys,
responsible ownership,
and no skills.
It's a tool, and you need training on how to use it.
If you don't know how to use a nail gun,
you're going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice. So we're going to end this, and I want to say, is it true that everybody in this podcast studio is against gun violence?
Yes.
Yes.
All against gun violence?
Yes.
Yeah,
Everybody.
100%.
Very nice, guys. All right, so Goodbye, Smithfield. Been nice seeing you guys. Everybody point the camera and say bye, Smithfield.
Bye,
That's
Smithfield.
your camera. This is your guys' camera.
Bye,
You guys
Smithfield.
too. Right here, this one. Yeah, all right. See you guys.
See you guys around.
End in the live.